When you think about the Cape Coral Community Foundation, I say to people all the time, one of the things that people look at our organization and say, just give us a grant, just give us a grant. And the problems in our community are just so much bigger for a grant to solve. But being generous will change our community. So our message is more about generous living, not just grant making. So we've heard at a very high level from Bill High, we've heard from David Green, we've heard from a great communicator in Todd McMitchin. Now we want to talk a little bit more practically. So when people looked at the agenda, they said you have national communicators that are coming in. Let's hear from some local experts that can come up on stage and share with us from a practical standpoint of things that we could do if our hearts have been stirred towards generosity and we want to give. Can you share the multiple ways of how we might be able to give?
In light of the changes in the 2018 tax law, what can donors do to increase their chances of receiving tax deductions for their donations?
Well, I've had to modify a little bit what I was going to say based on all the amazing information that we've heard already. But I do want to clarify something concerning the new tax code, because it is something that, as leaders of nonprofit organizations and community leaders, we deal with donors and those that are charitable that come from outside of the faith community. And oftentimes they are interested in having the government subsidize some of their charitable giving. So we all file 1040s at the end of the year. And there's an issue called itemization that the government went after this time. They estimated approximately 30% of the people who file 1040s itemize their deductions. And simply what that means is you make a list of those items that the government allows you to take a deduction against your income from. You compare it to a standard deduction that the government has provided to you, and you take the larger of the two. Last year, a married couple filing jointly was able to deduct $12,700 from their taxable income. If you had itemized deductions, and those that are very charitable oftentimes got to a number higher than $12,700, so they were able to take those itemized deductions. Now they feel like they're receiving a benefit from their charitable donations. So the government, in a tax simplification move, which never really simplifies anything, said that we're going to nearly double that standard deduction to $24,000. So now we're sitting in a situation where maybe the donations that our donors are providing are perceived to not receive a deduction. So the fear is in the community that we're in is that people may choose not to give now that they're not getting a deduction. And I want to be clear that those in the room certainly are giving from the heart. Most of the people do give from the heart, and they're looking to receive the intangible benefits that come with being charitable. But we also need to be in a position to address questions from the donors and the community as to how they can get a benefit still. So there are a couple of things, and maybe some others will be mentioned, but a couple of quick ones is bunching. So if you know you're going to give $10,000 a year for the next 5 years, you may want to consider giving $50,000 this year to help you get over that $24,000 hurdle and allow yourself to receive some benefit from those donations. Donor advised funds are an opportunity to do that as well. For those of us that are, I'm not, 70 and a half or older, you have the opportunity in taking your required minimum distribution from your IRA and have that go directly to the charitable organization. Normally, when you receive that distribution, it comes to your tax return as taxable income. You essentially receive 100% deduction for it when you direct that dollars to a charitable organization instead. It doesn't show up on your tax return. So in that instance, you'd have the benefit of the 24 and whatever it is you were directing to the charity.
Good information. Next question I have, again, we heard from David and Bill talk about this morning, Keith. What are ways that donors can get their children involved in their giving? Mm-hmm. What recommendations do you have?
Well, as you indicated, Joan, many of those were covered, so I modified a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about ourselves, and my wife happens to be here as well. We have 5 children between us, ages 15 to 26. So we have some children that fall into the demographic that we're concerned with, and what our children are, I think, missing today is the experiential opportunities to be philanthropic and to give. And I have two of my pastors here, my former pastor, Matt Keller from Next Level Church, who, when we attended that church, provided us with experiential opportunities for our entire family. They had adopted a community in downtown Fort Myers, and myself, my wife, and our kids would go down and help serve that community. And that was very powerful for our children to be involved in something like that. And now Dennis Gingrich and his wife, Linda's here with him as well, at Cape Christian. And we've adopted, the church has adopted a community in Haiti. And there was a message given in church, and my kids, you know, I'm very proud of them. They are giving kids. We've always been very open with them about what we give. And they've never complained about not being able to have something because they understood, the finances. So that message was given, and our kids came out of the church, and it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was for $1,000 you could feed a class of school children for a year. And we have a 16-year-old son who came out of that and said, "Dad, how much money do I have in the savings account? Because I can't think of a better way to spend $1,000. And this is a 16-year-old kid. So that was one of the proudest moments that we had, and we decided as a group they would do that. So that he allowed his siblings to participate in that as well. They're growing up in a time that's very different than us, with the internet and the cell phone, and they're very proud to be able to disprove Dad's information now within minutes on their phone. So they're not as impressed with information that Dad and Mom have anymore. But Dad and Mom can help bring them experiences that they're not getting themselves. But they know about crowdsourcing, and they know about GoFundMe. These are things that their generation has come together on and helping fund specific things that they are passionate about. But you can show them something like Daymaker, which is kind of like an online angel tree, where a child, even in middle school, would be able to see another child his or her age and who has expressed needs. And it gives them an opportunity to see kids like them who have needs when all of theirs are being met. So they get to help with that decision. Kiva's another one. You're not making donations, but they could take some of their savings account, and for as little as $25, they can make a microloan to someone in a third world country or a group of people in a third world country, and that money is paid back over time. There is risk of default, so you get to teach them about banking as well. Some things we're talking about with Michael is family giving circles to help the whole family decide how to give money, and getting the youth involved in the grant making. I know we have Sally Jackson in here as the current chair of our grant committee. And finally, the donor advised funds. Another use for a donor advised fund is if you have children who just don't get it, and you have the opportunity to leave them in power of the donor advised fund. So after you pass, the organization is going to come to them and ask your child how to help disseminate what needs to be disseminated from the donor advised fund. So those are just some things.
Very good, and good perspective, and to hear, your experience with your children and their perspective on how to start giving and participate, become generous. So I'd like to ask each of you another question. Keith, when transferring or selling a business, are there tax benefits for including a charity in that plan?
Again, this is another question that was touched upon previously, but certainly this is going to be a year when you may be in the highest tax bracket that you've ever been in. Certainly, it may be a year when you have access to more cash than you've ever seen in your life, because many times these business transactions take place at the end of the life of that business owner, and when they're looking to retire with dignity and get with these two fine professionals and talk about life after business. But you certainly don't want to miss the opportunities that exist. Get your group of trusted advisors together and share with them those organizations, your church and any other nonprofit organizations that you have a passion for. And there are certainly ways to make a huge impact in those organizations during this time, and again, have the government help you subsidize it, at least currently how the tax law is written. So you don't want to be looking back on it years down the road and saying, boy, if we had have only done this or used this strategy, my nonprofit organization would have been much better off and we would have been much better off. So certainly get with your advisors. It is a big opportunity.
Good, thank you. All right. Well, with that, we appreciate your time. We hope that this was beneficial to you. And again, looking at it on a local level with our local experts. Thank you.